MPs came, and then they just handcuffed me, put me in the Humvee, put me in a holding cell on that base.
What happens the second you touch down over there?
At my worst, it was 1530s in the morning and 1530s around 7 o'clock, so 900 milligrams a day. And I remember my first stint in rehab, everybody didn't believe me.
What do you think was the worst experience being in a cell like that for the first time?
They said that I was on 95 North, I OD'd behind the wheel, and I was going northbound on 95 South.
What flashback do you think replayed the most in your mind from Afghanistan when you got back from that second tour? Imagine going from serving your country overseas to spending $900 a day on drugs. Today's guest, Victor Woods, was a U.S. soldier who hit rock bottom after 2 deployments, an arrest overseas, and a near-fatal car crash. But instead of giving up, he turned his life around, and now he's a firefighter, husband, and father. This is one of the most powerful redemption stories we've had on the show. Victor, welcome to Locked In. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
No problem.
You just moved to Danbury not too long ago, right?
Yeah, a little over a year.
Cool. And then we met you and your wife here at the studio last week, and we convinced you to come on the show.
Yes.
Maddie Ice and your wife convinced you to come on.
Maddie was a big convincer.
And you're our first guest in the brand new studio. We just redid it completely. New panels, got rid of the carpet, and new mics, everything. It's all up and up.
It looks great.
Yeah, you saw it before, last week before when the curtains were just here.
Yeah, before the construction, yeah.
Yeah, we did the lighting and everything, mounted the cameras on the wall. I just got back from Vegas yesterday. I caught a freaking cold yet again. I'm giving up drinking. It just ruins my immune system.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
It strengthens mine.
Really? Yeah, that's what Matt was saying. He could drink like a fish and everything is fine. And me, I'd like get drunk like 2 days in a row and my whole immune system's down. So I think I'm done with drinking unless it's like a special holiday or something.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know, my wife thinks I'm weird, but I went from Corona to Old Fashions, and now I don't drink Corona. All I drink is Old Fashions. Not crazy, but you know.
Old Fashions are good though.
Yeah, I love bourbon.
Yeah, I used to be the guy that ordered like a white wine at the bar, like a Pinot Grigio, and my friends are like, "You can't do that. Like that's not acceptable." And so they said, "Order an Old Fashioned." So I started ordering that, and everything worked out from there.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Where'd you grow up, Victor?
Brooklyn.
What was that like?
It was interesting. Irish mother, Puerto Rican father. Basically down the middle as far as Brooklyn goes. Red Hook and Park Slope are right next to each other. I stayed with my mother, Irish, in Park Slope, and my father was in Red Hook, but she was a single mother the entire time. She got zero help from him, so she worked her ass off, and she did her best to raise me. But she was one of those, strong-handed, I got to raise my son into a man type of women. So I think she did a good job, pushed me in the right direction. 9/11 kind of steered me a different path. I think she wanted me to be a lawyer. And then as soon as that happened, from day one, I was like, I think I'm going to join the Army.
Did she tell you much about your dad?
She said that he was a good man, in shape, and then he just went down the wrong path. He was out with friends and thought he was doing coke, and it turned out to be heroin. And then from there, he was done. And it was, I think she was already pregnant with me, and it was about 7 months before I was born. And the worst story that she told me was the day I was born, he came to the hospital, signed paperwork, and then took the money out of her wallet and left. And she was too embarrassed to tell anybody from our family that she doesn't have money for the TV. Because, back then you needed to give them money to actually watch TV. So she just, bad day for her. First day, the day her first son is born, she's crying in the hospital because she doesn't have any money because her baby daddy stole it. So,
were you curious about your dad growing up, or was it just a one-time conversation of what happened?
I saw him here and there. When my grandmother on the Puerto Rican side, she was an amazing woman. She passed a couple of years ago, but she would try to get him straightened out so that when he did see me, he didn't look bad. And, they did their best, but it wasn't that great. And then as soon as I became a teenager, I started getting curious, what's my family like? I think it was like 13, 14 years old when I started going, sneaking off and going down to Red Hook and spending time with my Puerto Rican side of my family. And honestly, he wasn't a bad man. He passed too, but he wasn't a bad man. He made mistakes and he couldn't fix those mistakes. That's about it.
What career was your mom in?
She's a manager at Key Food. She's been a manager at Key Food since I was born.
Was that a good career for her?
It was good because of her work ethic. She worked so hard. She started off as a cashier, and she worked so hard that eventually the two bosses, who are like family to me too, they were like, we can't run this business without her. And now she runs the whole thing. They give her what she wants, pay raise. I think for a while she was they were leasing her a car just to make sure that she could get to and from work. Their whole business, I feel like she's the foundation. And I got my work ethic 100% from her.
So do you think you guys didn't necessarily struggle as much as maybe others did because of her career?
Oh, no, we struggled. Brooklyn.
No, Dad's from Brooklyn.
Yeah, Brownstone in Brooklyn. Now,
Millions.
my grandfather owned a brownstone in Brooklyn, 10th Street between 7th and 6th Avenue. And after he passed, my mother has, I think, 7 or 8 brothers and sisters. After he passed, we were still living there. We were still taking care of it. I think I was about 5 or 6 years old when this happened. And it came to the option of selling it. I know it started with a 5. It was either $15,000 a piece or $50,000 a piece. Don't know what it was, but I know it was in the early 90s. And she said, where are me and my son going to go? And my entire Irish side of the family said, we don't know, but we don't care. And the majority decision was to sell the brownstone. She took that money, and then we ended up moving in a block and a half away with my grandmother's sister, so my mother's aunt, my great aunt. She was a older lady, schizophrenic, and every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. there was one of those home health aides. So that was my childhood, a schizophrenic old lady in a railroad apartment in Park Slope. No doors. There's 2 doors. The door to the apartment and the door to the bathroom, which didn't have a lock on it. It was just a closed door. And I hated it. I hated every minute of it. I just couldn't wait to get out.
What do you think your favorite memory was from childhood?
First fight I won, 100%. That was, it's got to be like the best, because I remember my Uncle Billy, my mother's side again. I came home one day because my uncles used to pick me up from school. Everybody was close. We were on 11th Street. They were on 16th Street, 5 blocks away. And I had a black eye. And he was talking to me about what happened. He was rough on me. And talk about developing leather skin. My Uncle Billy turned every part of me into leather skin. He didn't want me to be a loser. He didn't want me to take shit. And, my wife likes to tell the story. The last time he lost a street fight was when he was 12 years old. My uncle got me into boxing. And I remember after like 6 months, the same kid that sent me home with that black eye, I beat the shit out of him. And from then on, it was just like, all right, now you got to be a tough guy in order to survive. That was basically it.
Do you think you had a lot of anger?
I had a shit ton of anger. Yeah. I wasn't happy at home. Nothing to do with my mother. She worked crazy hours trying to provide for me. Just didn't like living with a crazy old lady and some random lady. And it changed. Monday through Friday was one chick. Saturday and Sunday was another chick. And I just was like, being home sucked. You can escape only so much through video games. And I had my little N64 and I loved playing that. But then that became an issue because of the wire. My aunt had to walk by. She used to just kick the cord right out of the N64. She was crazy. She wasn't a terrible person, but she was mentally ill. So I hated it. And it made me an angry person.
What do you think was your least favorite memory from childhood?
I think it would it was probably getting kicked out. I deserved it, but getting kicked out, I don't remember if I was 16 or 17 years old, but my mom had finally had enough. I was very rebellious. And at that time, my same Uncle Billy that taught me how to fight, he moved to Texas to, start his own life. He moved out of Brooklyn, went to Texas, ended up getting arrested for transporting illegals over the border. So he was in jail at the time, and I would never forget the phone call. He called me from jail and told, my mom talked to him and basically told him what I was doing. And it turned, long story short, she kicked me out, and she kicked me out with our dog. I had a Rottweiler, Roxy, and I slept on the F train going from Jamaica to Coney Island back and forth for a couple of weeks. And eventually I just bit the bullet, and I went to my dad's and I told him, I've been living on the street. I need a place to stay. And I don't know which was worse, living on the street or having to, swallow that pill and going to my dad and saying I need help, because I didn't want help. I remember my best friend to this day, Tim. He slept on the train with me one night. I couldn't believe he would do it, but he was like, "I'm not gonna leave you here." And the conductor would wake us up. We'd switch every time we got to Jamaica. You switch to the other side, go back to Coney Island, get woken up by the conductor again, and back and forth.
Do you think that moment prepared you for later on in your life?
Yeah. I think that that durability that it presented in me, I guess, or the I don't want to call it strength. It was more like, I could deal with anything. I can go through this. If I went through this, I could go through anything. I remember in Stillwell Avenue, Coney Island, with my Rottweiler, standing outside of McDonald's back when they had the dollar menu, just telling, I'm on the street. I'm just trying to feed my dog. A couple people give me dollar menu nuggets, dollar menu fries. I fed my dog first, and then when I could eat, I would eat. And then eventually when I joined the military boot camp, I was like, this is nothing. Everything that came after was nothing after that experience, I guess.
Now, I know you said your mom wanted you to be a lawyer. What did you want to be before the military was ever in your mind?
I always thought I was going to go pro in boxing. That wasn't going to happen. I was a good street fighter. Boxing, even the fire department. I know we're not up to that yet, but even that, I didn't even know if that was in my mind yet. I wanted to please, and my mom wanted me to be a lawyer, so I was like, all right, I'm going to be a lawyer. I went to John Jay College, and I was like, this is not for me. And every time she thought I was going to class, I was actually at the recruiter's office. I used to get those pieces of paper from the recruiter that said he's excused because he's joining the military. So I guess lawyer would be the answer, because I just wanted to make her happy.
What interested you about the military the most?
Well, like I said, 9/11 happened when I was in 7th grade, and I kind of took it personally a little bit. I could see the Twin Towers from our apartment in Park Slope, and then I could see the cloud of smoke that lasted over weeks. A week later, you still saw that cloud of smoke from the 4th floor of our apartment. That pointed me in the direction, but part of me was still like, all right, let me see if I can do college. Let me see if I can do this. And eventually I was just like, no. I felt like something was missing, and I had so much aggression that I needed to let out. And eventually the Army was the best thing for me.
What was the final straw for college?
I want to say it was a sociology class that I was in. And I was just, going through the motions. You're reading what they're telling you to read. You're doing this, you're doing that. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense to me. This isn't going to teach me anything. This isn't going to point me in any direction. I had already worked, I think, 2 or 3 jobs at that point where I'm sitting with kids, that have never worked. This is just, we're continuing school for them. I had 2 or 3 jobs at that point, and I didn't feel like I was sitting with my peers, if that makes sense. And I wanted to be around people that actually made sense to me. You know, college is great for girls. At least for me, I was like, all right, this isn't so bad. There's girls everywhere. But other than that, it didn't stick. I ended up going later and you know, going to nursing school and stuff like that. But at that time, I just really needed to do something physically, I guess, is the answer.
Were you afraid to join the military?
No, I was excited. I was so excited. I remember the recruiter office was in Bay Ridge, 86th Street and 4th Avenue. And left was the Marines, right was the Army. I went to the Marines first. I spoke to them, said everything I wanted to hear, but they said that boot camp didn't leave until, I think it was May of 2008. Spoke to the Army. All I said was, I want to go to a combat unit. They said, we can ship you out next month. And my enlistment date is December 17th, 2007. So that a month later, I was out.
How did your mom react when you told her?
She said that the military is for people that are going nowhere in life, and you have the options to go somewhere. And I get where she was coming from. She felt just like I would feel for my kids. She felt that she had worked so hard. Why are you doing this when you can do anything else in the world, but you're doing this? And to this day, I don't regret the decision. It was the best decision I ever made in my life.
Tell us about boot camp.
It was funny. It was funny. It was funny to miss it after it was over. But, you know, you get there and you start at reception. They're giving you your shots. They're shaving your head. They're doing all that. And I remember I got into a lot of trouble the first week, because they said we were supposed to start boot camp the end of that week, and the drill sergeants had messed something up, and they said, you're going to start next week now. My stupid ass, I opened my mouth, and I'm like, yeah, because the drill sergeants didn't do their job. Everybody got smoked. Everybody got in trouble, and everybody knew it was me. So then we get back to the barracks, and everybody's in my face like, the fuck is wrong with you? Shut your mouth. You don't know how to do this. It's like, no, I don't know how to do this. I just got here. Nobody knows how to do this yet. But after that, it just kind of went smooth sailing. You know, I became a squad leader. Then I lost the squad leader position because I got in trouble.
What do you do?
When you get to boot camp, they have this painted line. It's a square. It's called the kill zone. And none of the privates are allowed to step in the kill zone. So you have about a foot of space between your bunk and the kill zone. I don't know what I was thinking, or if I wasn't thinking, but I just walked. It was time to take a shower. I walked right into the kill zone. Walked right through. I started beelining for the shower, and I just saw everybody staring behind me like they were looking at something. Didn't know what it was. Ended up being the drill sergeant. He saw me in the kill zone. Grabbed one of those plastic school chairs, but the ones that have the metal legs, and launched it. I don't remember anything. I just woke up. I had ice packs under my balls, under my knees, under my armpits, and behind my head. And I get up, and they're like, one of the other guys was there, and he was like, yeah, I was ordered to sit here and watch you to make sure that you didn't seize or anything. And I was like, what happened? He was like, the drill sergeant launched a chair at you, and he was like, it didn't even roll. He was like, the thing just went straight and hit you right in the back of the head, and you were knocked out. The only time in my life I've ever been knocked out, besides explosions overseas, but that doesn't count. This is like a hit and knocking me out. And I noticed on my shoulder that my patch was gone. Somebody else had it now, because they give you like a little squad leader patch. So I was like, all right. I didn't think anything of it, but I got demoted my first 3 weeks into the Army. This isn't a good start.
Did you like being a leader?
No, not in the beginning. I didn't like the responsibility. I just wanted to focus on me. And then eventually it, I don't know if it grows on you or what happens, but the military has its way of making you bringing out the best in you.
What do you think was the hardest part of basic training?
Definitely wasn't following. Following orders is the easiest thing in the world. The hardest part was not fighting other people, for me. You know, when somebody fucked up, or when somebody was just making your entire platoon lack something. And now, you know, basic training is huge on mass punishment. I didn't want everybody to get in trouble for somebody doing something wrong. And one of the biggest things that I think I took out of the military was never making the same mistake twice. I made that mistake once. I got hit in the back of the head. I got demoted. Never made it again. So when anybody else made it, I wanted to like strangle them. You know, we had one kid that got kicked out of boot camp because he just refused to train. He was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And we got in trouble every morning and every night because of him. And it got to the point where we were like, all right, we're going to kick the shit out of him. But that was the hardest part, dealing with other people's personalities.
Sounds like prison.
You're not the first person to tell me that. Everybody tells me, like, the military and prisons, like, even Afghanistan, you got 3 choices over there. You know, you do your job, you do your mission, but you can either work out, you can read, or you can watch whatever movies you have on your little hard drive and stuff like that. Obviously, you guys don't have well, now, I don't know what they have in prison, but back when you went, I don't know if you guys...
No, we had nothing.
Yeah,
we had TVs.
Yeah, that's it.
Now they're living the life.
Yeah, I see they got cameras, they got everything they want in there.
Tablets. The tablets is the craziest thing. I guess some tablets must have social media, because you see some celebrities using social media from prison.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, because I got plenty of friends. I got a couple of friends that are still doing time. I got one friend that's never getting back out. He wanted to go back the second he came out. He just couldn't deal with civilian life, and that's the same thing that we go through. We come home. I came home from my first tour in 2013. By 2014, I was signing up for another one. I just couldn't deal with being home. Because you don't have to deal with everybody's emotions. You just have to do your job over there. And everybody at home is just like, okay, I hope he comes back. You don't have to experience that, though. So it was, it's a weird transition. And I'm sure it was for you, too. It's not comfortable.
Where'd they send you for your first tour?
Afghanistan.
What happens the second you touch down over there?
The second we touched down, we landed in Bagram. And at that time, that was 2012, they were doing combat landings, which is so to avoid RPGs. So they're, you know, you're flying and the landing strip could be here. You don't want them to get a beat on you, I guess. So we went kind of like this at a point and then pulled up and then landed. I have the picture. I gotta send it to you. But we just looked like we were canned in like sardines. We were all just scrunched up. We had our rucksacks on our laps. And we landed, unload. They go straight into, this is what you can't go near. You know, they had like some viper out there that if this bites you, we don't have any solution. You're gonna die. And then I remember in the middle of their IED lanes spiel, you know, they walk you through and say, you know, look out for this. If you see like a pile of rocks, that could be a sign for there might be an IED, because they use that as a visual aid for detonating IEDs. So they'll be like, all right, when the truck passes that pile of rocks, hit the button. And then during that, all of a sudden the alarms go off and they start screaming at us, get down, and fucking 4 mortars just fly in. And at that time, that base, I don't know if they had the C-rams, and C-rams are something that shoots down mortars. It's like a Gatling gun that just finds it, hits it, and tries to deflect it or shoot it out of the sky. All 4 of those mortars landed that day. Don't know what was going on with the C-ram. But I remember the guy, I heard the whistle of the first one coming in, and the guy that was instructing us on the IED lane was like, hold your ears and open your mouth. Because I guess he could tell how close by the whistle, which I learned later with experience, but it was coming in close. And if that explosion goes off too loud, it could pop everything in, your eardrums and all that. 4 landed, nothing bad happened, but I'm looking around and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, this is real. This is exactly what we expected to happen." And it just 2012, it went off from there. Didn't go uphill. I mean, it didn't go downhill. It went uphill. It was a uphill march because of our rules of engagement was one, and it was we had a lot of unexperienced people for that first deployment.
So there was a 5-year gap between when you joined and when you actually got deployed?
Yes, 2007 to 2000, and I got deployed 2011, but I didn't get back till 2013. So yeah, it was a big gap. I had volunteered for a bunch. That's another thing that can happen. You can volunteer and get shipped off to a unit that has nothing to do with the job that you signed up for. Or you can get deployed with your unit. That first year I got deployed with my unit. Ended up getting kicked out of my unit for the whole deployment, but yeah, that was my own fault too.
What was your mission when you guys got there? Like your individual unit?
So our mission was force protection, route clearance. Force protection is basically like putting up concrete barriers, setting up the guard towers and all that. It's basically fortifying a base. Route clearance is going down routes that we are going to eventually use to go on missions and make sure there's no IEDs. That's what a combat engineer does. They go down, and it's all about bombs, but it's not like EOD or any of that stuff. You're just looking for bombs. That's why I like one of the memes that recently or that came out. You can't trust a guy who signed up for a job where his job is to get blown up. And that's basically what we signed up for. Our job was to get blown up because you're trying to find the bomb, and if you don't find the bomb finds you. But your mission is accomplished because you found it. It went off. It just went off on you.
Did you ever have a close scenario involving you?
Yeah, a couple. We had 3 trigger dets go off from the side, and those 3 were while I was in the gunner's turret. I only count the ones that I was actually exposed to. So the 3 trigger dets, which are, they are visually watching you, and they'll blow up a bomb from the side, and you just have to hope it's not, I forget the name of the bomb, but it's a copper bomb that goes through our MRAPs. It's heated copper, and it rips right through like a hot knife through butter. Those 3 were not, thank God. It was just regular IEDs, and you get a concussion, you get a headache, and you just drive on. The other 2 were pressure plate. And the pressure plate IEDs, the wheel goes over, it pushes down, and the truck goes up. And those are bad. I think the worst situation I was in wasn't even any of those 5. It was a line drive RPG at a blackout base. We were on a base where you couldn't wear name tapes, you couldn't wear anything because we were in a highly territorial Taliban and ISIS I don't remember which one it was, but couldn't wear anything. So basically you're walking around in a t-shirt all day. They don't want to see your last name. They don't want to see U.S. Army, nothing. And while we were doing the HESCO barriers, which are basically sheet metal and cloth that we fill with rocks, RPG hits that, usually doesn't go through. As I'm guiding the crane and telling them, a little bit left, a little bit right, all of a sudden the alarm goes off and I hear the whistle, like I was telling you before, and I see the fucking, you're hearing it and seeing it at the same time. I'm 16 feet up on a double stack of HESCO barriers. So I'm about 15, 16 feet in the air. My only option, I wasn't climbing down slow, so my only option was to jump, because when the RPGs hit, the shrapnel goes up. So I was in the worst place possible. Jumped off, I landed on my right side, my head smacked off the ground, and I was out of it for a few days. I didn't have to, the only thing, I got a week off, but I was in so much pain, And to this day, I still get the migraines. If I ever have a flashback, I like the other day, I woke up, I had a migraine just because I had a dream about that day. So that was probably the scariest out of anything.
Does the moment after a situation like that, are you questioning being there to begin with? Does it make you want to return home?
The only time I questioned what am I doing was again in 2012. 2012 when I got sent away from my unit because I got into an argument with my platoon leader, which is a lieutenant. He sent me to go do what they called the Guardian Angel program, which was American and NATO forces training the Afghan police and Afghan National Army, ANA and ANP. And while we were there, my first month there, a bunch of Australian soldiers were mowed down by one of the guys they were training. So this was like, I think I was like 2 months into my first deployment, and they're like, all right, your job is to do what these 10 guys just got. Well, I think 3 got killed and 7 got critically injured. But they're like, all right, your job is to do what they were just doing. And I was like, what the I mean, can we figure out a better way to do this? And because of the administration at that time, which was Obama, nothing against him either, it was all hearts and minds. Just because that guy that did that was bad doesn't mean that all of them are bad, which is true. Not all of the Afghani army or Afghani police people were bad. And even the one guy that day that did that, it was because the Taliban had his family hostage. So they said, you go do this or we're going to murder your family. So, it's a losing battle when you're fighting like that. I lost 5 brothers in 2012. I lost 0 in 2017 for my second deployment during Trump's administration, but that was because the rules of engagement were different. You see a weapon, you're cleared to shoot. Obama's rules of engagement were the weapon has to be pointed at you in order for you to be cleared to shoot.
And who do those rules of engagement come by? Is that like Congress passes a rule, or is that the military generals? How does that work?
As far as we go, it comes from Commander-in-Chief, which is the president. But of course, everybody has advisors. You have advisors for your job. I'm sure somebody advised the first president, Obama at that time, this is what we should do. And I'm sure somebody advised Trump. I don't know if he's advisable, but I'm sure somebody told him this is what we should do. And he was probably like, no, I don't want nobody coming. Like, I got to be honest, 2017, not a lot of guys died. 2012, I mean, just from my mission alone, which was the Guardian Angel program, 42 Americans died that year.
And you think that was strictly because of the rules of engagement?
We were softer. If you're softer on anybody, they see it. It doesn't take long to notice it. And then you're there for me, it was first deployment was 13 months, second deployment was 15 months. And they pick up on everything. This hypervigilance that I developed because of the military came from trying not to get caught off guard by these people. So,
aside from getting kicked off your unit that first deployment, did any other issues happen?
Yeah. Yeah. When I was sent away from my guys, and I went to Uruzgan province, Afghanistan, to work with the Australians to do the Guardian Angel program. And I was sent with 4 other American soldiers that I never met before in my life, didn't know who they were. And while there, I reported to Australian command now instead of my guys. My highest ranking person, my highest ranking guy was a sergeant first class at the time. Their guy was a warrant officer, which is basically a little bit higher than a lieutenant, or can be in certain cases. One day, I don't really remember what happened, but I had this disgusting breakout on my back. They weren't sure what it was from, but I was on basically sick call, medical leave. and I had to report to the med bay at like 09:30. At the same time, my barracks, where my barracks were at, time difference, I was FaceTiming somebody at home, a girl I was talking to at the time. And while I was FaceTiming her, the Australians that I worked for were moving out of their barracks to move into barracks closer to where we worked. The warrant officer saw me on FaceTime outside my barracks, and I guess he just thought that I was just not coming to work that day, or I don't know what happened. But as I'm talking to her, all of a sudden I start getting yelled at, screamed at from the side. So, I'm young. I think I was 22 at that time. And I'm like, is this fucking guy yelling at me right now in front of this girl? Even though she's 6,000 miles away, I felt it was very disrespectful. So I said, hold on one second. I took the laptop. I said, I got to go. Slammed it. Slammed it. I threw it on my hooch. I remember I was outside in civilian clothes. I had my Yankees hat on backwards. I used to wear it on a fucking slant like that. And I came right outside and I got right in his face. And as soon as I got close enough to him, he put his hands on me first. But it wasn't a crazy, he was keeping his distance, which I understand. He was like, you're too fucking close. And at that time, I wasn't this size either. I was maybe 165 pounds soaking wet. As soon as he pushed me, I went right into the HESCO barriers that were protecting our barracks at the time. And as soon as my back hit it, I just bounced off of it and I went straight with a right. And shit went downhill from there. I hit him. He came back at me. He didn't punch me, but he was trying to restrain me. I was losing my shit. His soldiers, the Australian guys, they all jumped on me. My guys came running out of the barracks. They all started pushing everybody away. And I never forget when my heart sank when he was like, I want to press charges on him. I want the MPs. He started going off. And I was like, fuck, you fucked this up too. That's the first thing I thought. I was like, how do you join the army? You're doing everything you're supposed to do. You're doing everything right. And then now you fucked this up too. MPs came. Everybody explained their version of the story. And then they just handcuffed me, put me in the Humvee, put me in a holding cell on that base. And I was there for about a week.
And do they charge you in that moment?
No. Not in that moment. Everything has to make its rounds. So my leadership was trying to talk to him and saying, listen, we don't need to ruin this guy's career. What can we do to make this right? Because he admitted, he was like, oh, I didn't know he was supposed to go to sick hall today. I didn't know anything that was going on. He just thought that I was like, nah, I'm not helping. You know what I mean? And that guy was like, no. He hit me. I'm an officer. He's enlisted. That's what we were called, enlisted, because I was a specialist at the time. He's being brought up on charges. The base commander, the Australian commander, and my leadership, which was, compared to everybody in this room, my leadership was nobody. He's the pawn compared to all these high ranks. And I spent a week not knowing what was going to happen.
What's that holding cell like after getting arrested by MPs?
So on that base, it's basically I don't know if you know what a Connex is, shipping container. Mm-hmm. So a shipping container that they cut holes into, make windows and do all this stuff because honestly, it's pretty good against mortars. That's why they use them. And normal bars, shitty bed. It was like a wooden piece of wood with 4 legs and a PT mat, which is maybe like this thick. And then you get 2 to 3 meals a day. I don't remember if I got 2 or 3 every day, but every MP that's in there, because I was the only one in there. I was the only one in the cell that had an American uniform on. They were like, they treat you like shit because they're like, I don't know what he did, but he's obviously a piece of shit. And mostly over there, when you're in that cell, it's usually for like a sexual assault crime or something. I can't tell you how many of those happen over there. where soldiers are assaulting other soldiers and things like that.
Men against women?
Yes. Yeah. My second tour, 2 Marines got locked up, and I think they're still in Leavenworth to this day because it was a civilian contractor, female, that they attacked.
I actually interviewed a guy his story goes, he was in the military. His ex-girlfriend reported, or his ex-wife reported, that he assaulted her, and they charged him in the military, and he went to a military prison for 2 years for that.
Yeah,
ruined his whole career over it.
And that anything can go wrong. Anytime that you end up in that position, there is no, all right, this might happen or this. No, you're always worst case scenario because it's the military. You know, the first thing they tell you is if we kick you out of here, you can't even get a job at McDonald's, which probably isn't true, but it scares the shit out of you.
So how do you guys look at MPs, like regular soldiers?
I look at them as assholes. You look at them like, all right, they're running around like they have more power than you, no matter your rank. You know, you could be a first sergeant, and an MP who's just a sergeant can pull you over. They have the power at that point because whether it's a legal stop or not, but sometimes they can abuse it. Like when I was in that holding cell, I remember one guy was super cool to me. I think it was Garcia. Ended up being from Newark, New Jersey. So, you know, right there, talking to him about Brooklyn, he's talking to me about Newark. And another guy came who was a country boy from, I want to say Oklahoma. But he just was like, I remember he would always give me my meals late so that they weren't warm. They were cold. And he did it on purpose because he, you know, just wanted to be a dick.
Wouldn't they know, though, that you were there for fighting and not for anything other than that?
I think the guys above them know. So if you have like a specialist or a sergeant watching you, his leadership definitely knows why you're in that cell. Whether they tell it or not, I don't know. I don't know what they're legally allowed to tell the other soldiers, you know what I mean? Because honestly, if I was an MP and I found out the guy in the cell is there because he sexually assaulted a woman, I'd probably treat him like shit too. And in my head, I'm like, I kept saying, I'm here because I fucking punched a warrant officer. Like, why are you being a dick to me? But a lot of guys, they don't give a shit about what you have to say. They have their own agenda. What
was the food they were giving you? Is it the same that a regular person would eat?
Yes. Yeah. Well, some days I got food from the chow hall, and other days I got MREs, which is the meals ready to eat. Other days I got that. It was hit or miss.
Why would they switch?
I still to this day have no idea.
You think they were just screwing with you?
I know Garcia gave me hot meals. I know Oklahoma gave me fucking MREs most of the time, but sometimes he gave me hot meals too. So, I mean, the regular meals.
What do you think was the worst experience being in a cell like that for the first time?
Not knowing. I didn't know I was only going to be in there a week. I thought I was going from here to Bagram to the States, and I was going to Leavenworth to put my hands on an officer. And I remember the day they told me, all right, we're moving you. I got out. I was still in cuffs, and I was thought this was it. All right, my military career is over. I fucked up. And they ended up taking me to the commander's office, the commander of the base. Because if the warrant officer that day had kept it, which has happened plenty of times in the military, you keep it under wraps, can handle it amongst yourselves. The minute you involve the MPs and everybody else, now the commander of that base, which was a colonel, American colonel, no less, which sucks for me at least, now everybody's involved. Now there's a paper trail. And I remember leaving. I remember when they took me out that day, I was like, I fucked up. My life is over. Wanted to cry. I didn't. I remember I was biting the inside of my fucking cheek so hard, just trying to hold it back. Because I just didn't know what I was going to do after. I'm like, am I going to go home now and tell everybody I failed at this?
So what happens after you get out? You go and see the colonel?
Everybody was there. The Australian command, the guy I hit, my sergeant first class, and the commander. And the only thing that helped me like kind of relax was no lawyers. There were no JAG officers. And that was the first thing that my sergeant first class, my leadership told me. He's like, there's no JAG officers here. You might be good. Because if there's a JAG officer, that means we're going to trial. They basically, the warrant officer thought, the guy that it hit thought that the Article 15, which is you get docked a month's pay, 2 weeks to a month. I don't remember how much it was at that time, but you're not getting paid for the next 2 weeks to 4 weeks. And it was kind of like a stain, I guess, on my record too, because I didn't get promoted for the next 5 years. That was, every time I wanted to get promoted, they were like, no, you're unpromotable right now. And then 5 years later, I finally got my stripes and got promoted to sergeant.
How'd the rest of your team respond after you got released?
They, well, the one guy I was close to was my sergeant first class. And he was like, it is what it is. He was a cool guy. He was like a decent, like, shit happens type of guy. The other three kind of thought that I was fucking up a good thing that they had, because they liked working at this base. It was a nice setup. They had a decent gym, had decent food. Nobody wanted to go to the American base with the shit food. They're like, no, let's stay on the Australian base with the good food. And they thought that I was going to fuck up their thing. So from that point on, they kind of treated me like shit. And then on top of it, my sergeant first class gets called to he gets called to Kandahar. And I'm there on my own now with these three guys that don't like me. I remember the day that I left that base and went to Kandahar to go work. They basically wanted me to take what I learned with the Guardian Angel program and bring it now to the guys from my unit. I got reunited with my guys. They're like, all right, what did the Australians do? And basically like that. The day that I got sent back, I had about, I want to say 900 pounds of gear. And I remember I'm walking with duffel bags, rucksack, everything. And I'm going maybe 5 inches a step because they wouldn't help me move. They had a truck and I'm trying to walk to the airport on base. And some civilian contractor saw me as I was walking. He's like, you need a lift? And I'm like, you wouldn't believe it right now. So it was, my first deployment was my worst deployment. It sucked.
How did the Australians treat you after that?
From that unit, I remember only one guy was cool with me. He's like, that guy's a dick, fuck him. But everybody else was like, they just kind of thought I was a cowboy. They were like, fucking American cowboy putting hands on officers. We don't do that in the Australian Army. I was young. I was 22. I made mistakes. I made mistakes before that. I made mistakes there. And the only thing from that point on is I always kept trying to say that, all right, don't make the same mistake twice. Don't make the same mistake twice. And I kept repeating that to myself.
Did you have any more issues that tour?
No. Not that tour. No, I don't think so. Just with like the Afghanis, but not with the American or Australian military. It was just, after, my second month there with the Australian guys getting mowed down by the Afghan army guy, I just kept, trying to keep my eyes open with people. And the only other issue I ran into was, I remember I sat on a box. I don't know what was in the box, but they had their Afghani writing on it. And as soon as I sat on it, one of these Afghani soldiers started yelling at me, like in my face. And that caused an issue because, I jumped up, I took my rifle, I fucking pushed him. And the interpreter said that, oh, it's disrespectful to sit on where they write. And in my head, I was like, I think they're just making up religious rules now. I don't know. Never heard about that before. Sitting on somebody's writing is disrespectful. But other than that, no. Because once I left, I think it was only 3 months left in my deployment. And I was back with my boys. So
Tell us what it was like once you got home after that first deployment.
bad. And nothing good, really. I locked myself in a room. I didn't know how to, you go from that, and I'm sure you can understand, you go from this lifestyle and to now being surrounded by people that don't understand it. So civilian life didn't stick at all. I remember I came home, I signed up for unemployment right away, and I locked myself in my room. I was drinking. I didn't really go anywhere. The one night I went out, I had a panic attack. I had my back up against the wall. I was watching the door. I'm watching people. And I had a panic attack that night. And I remember I went home. I was like, I'm not going out again. And my mother contacted my cousin, who was he was a paramedic at the time, and he was doing mixed martial arts. And came to the house one day, and he was just like, just come to the gym with me. Come to the gym with me once. And I fell in love with mixed martial arts right after that. I just ended up training like an animal and eventually started getting my life a little bit together. But that first 6 months, I didn't want to deal with anybody. All I kept doing was looking up different deployments I could sign up for to get out of here.
Did you have problems with alcohol or drugs before you left?
No. I drank, like I said, when I came home that first time, I was in my room, I was drinking, I was playing video games, pass out, wake up, I'm getting unemployment. I wasn't really looking for a job, but they make you go look. But I was drinking a lot at that time. I think it was the first 6 months. Once I started training, I stopped. I had a very good mindset on keeping my shit together for my purpose. If I had a purpose, I would aim at it and I would hit it. So I was very good with that. Unfortunately, the same cousin that introduced me to MMA was the same. I never did drugs before that either. I hustled, but I didn't touch anything. I didn't even smoke weed. Didn't touch anything. And I remember it was New Year's 2013, and we were at a club in Manhattan, Rooftop Lounge. And everybody's got their hands out in the middle of this circle. And my cousin was like, yeah, put your hand up. I put something in my hand, and I looked at it, and I looked at him, and I'm like, Tommy, I'm not snorting this shit. And he was like, you don't snort it, you idiot, you lick it. And it was Molly. And from that point on, Molly was my favorite thing in the world for like 8 months. 8 months, I was just like, every weekend I would go out and I would take Molly, because it took all the anxiety, all that back up against the wall stuff was out the window. And I was just finally having a good time.
In your mind, was your plan to go get deployed again?
Yes, it was always that.
So why do you think you even risked that with drugs?
Well, certain things don't last in your system that long. One of the big reasons why, everybody around me is smoking weed, but, Molly, Percocets, they don't last in your system that long. So I'm not smoking weed, but I'll take this stuff. And then at the time, I had transferred into the reserves. So now I'm in the reserves. So only once a month I'm getting piss tested. 3 weeks out of the month I would, have fun. And then that last week I wouldn't. But I was still in great shape. I was still doing everything I was supposed to do. I was on top of my shit. I eventually ended up going to EMT school and getting my EMT certificate. And then from there, I shifted straight to college and going to nursing school.
At that time period, do you think you were abusing Molly?
The first 8 months for sure. I wouldn't go anywhere without it, because it was like, I don't know, I felt like I couldn't go out unless I had something that made me feel like everything was going to be okay. So the first 8 months for sure, I think I would pretty much buy it every weekend, almost.
The feelings and the thoughts you had once you got back from that first deployment, did you ever talk to anyone about them?
No. Nah. Held it all in. I didn't talk about it even with my mother until after my second deployment. But I didn't talk about it with anybody.
Why do you think that was?
Nobody would understand. You go to the VA, you have these doctors talking to you. And I remember one of the doctors, the first and last appointment I had with this person. And they're talking to me about my feelings and this and the stuff I went through. And I looked at him, I'm like, Doc, how many deployments you been on? Like, oh, no, I'm a civilian. So what are we talking about? How can you relate to me or how can you help me if you have no idea what I've been through? And the only therapy I've ever gotten in the past few years that was decent was homeless vets. I'm not even joking. Because I remember with the fire department, when I used to work down in downtown Brooklyn, there were these two homeless vets that were underneath the BQE. And that's usually where I would park for when I would go work light duty there. I'd pick up a 6-pack of Corona and a pie of pizza. And I would sit with them. Both were Vietnam vets. And I would sit with them and I would talk with them. And I would come home with the biggest smile on my face. Like I had just gotten so much off my shoulders. But when I first got home, there was nobody that I would talk to about the stuff I've been through. And it just wasn't something I was comfortable doing.
What was your state of mind when you got that call for your second deployment?
I was excited. I was so happy. The second deployment came up kind of random. I finished college, like my associate's part of college, and I was going into Kingsborough's nursing program. And I did one semester of that, and the fire department called me. And I went to the FDNY Academy in December of 2015. And did the academy, got stationed at my firehouse, and January of 2017. So I got to my firehouse May of 2016. January of 2017 is when I got the call that I was getting deployed. And I couldn't have been happier. I hated that firehouse. I didn't like being there. I didn't like the people there. I think I got along with maybe 10 out of the 45 guys that worked there. So it was just that deployment came like a saving grace.
And where was this deployment to?
Afghanistan again. Yeah. Wasn't as bad as the first one. That's for sure. I mean, I have a friend that I talk to this day, my brother for life. He lives in North Carolina. And I have a bunch of guys, that deployment, I really, that leadership thing that you were talking about earlier, that opened up. I had been there, done that, and now I'm around these guys that haven't been there and done that. So then that was the first step into the direction of, all right, this is what you can expect, things like that. On top of it, they had a rule, that deployment, that if you didn't pass your PT test, you weren't allowed to go to Afghanistan. Because in that deployment, instead of going directly to Afghanistan, we started in Kuwait, did 30 days of weather acclimation, and then went to Afghanistan. Anybody that didn't pass their PT test couldn't go. And I worked with everybody that was failing and tried to get them there to make sure that they could go if they wanted to go.
What do you mean by weather acclimation?
So when it's the elevation is way different than being in the States. And then it's also I think like 6 guys got nosebleeds day one there just because of how high you are with the elevation and also the heat. We left in January from New York to go to 113-degree weather in Kuwait. So they want you to acclimate before they start sending you into missions because they don't want you to pass out in the middle of a mission or something. So you spend 30 days acclimating.
What was your mission focus this deployment?
This deployment, we focused on, they knew about my Guardian Angel program from the first deployment. So that was one of my missions. I had to protect my platoon sergeant while we were out. So I was basically like private security. I was standing by his side the whole time. Another thing was force protection. We were putting up all these barriers. We're doing putting up barriers, putting up C-rams. I remember when we got to Nangarhar province, they didn't have C-rams. So when a mortar comes in, it comes in. Another picture I got to send to you. Fucking mortar hits, bounces off the floor, and goes right into the barracks. Just blows everything to shit.
Did anyone get hurt?
They were on a mission. They were all out. And then besides that, route clearance here and there. But the second deployment was also cooler. It was we were on a special forces base. You know, we're at that time we were attached to Team 1. We were assisting them with whatever they needed. You do your route clearance, you do your force protection. You know, I had a lot more fun my second deployment, which made me want to go back even more for a third one, but that didn't happen.
What happened to your drug use on that second deployment?
I didn't do anything.
You just quit cold turkey?
Wasn't even cold turkey. I wasn't. So, like the Molly and all that?
Yeah.
From there, my cousin, he was doing amateur and mixed martial arts. I was his training partner. I would go to the gym with him every day. I would train with him. Molly was a party drug to him. For me, it was like, I can't go out without it at that time. Again, only lasted 8 months of 2013. Then one day while we were training, I fucking popped my ankle. Where we were doing, normal stand-up, but for MMA, stand-up is barefoot. And I slipped on a wet spot from sweat. My ankle popped. I couldn't really walk, and gave me a Percocet, a banana, the yellow ones, and ate it. I was drinking a Corona, and I remember watching him watch me. He was like waiting for it to hit because he knew I'd never taken anything like that. It was 10 milligram perk, and then all of a sudden, like, I was like, this is the best feeling in the world. Again, didn't abuse it. You're talking about 2013 to 2017, didn't abuse it. I was taking them, like maybe every weekend or every time I go out, I would be like, all right, I need a perk before I go out. When my friend Mark died, that's when I kind of upped, and he died 6 months, I think, before I deployed on the second one. Those 6 months was really when I feel like I started my addiction. That's because I remember we would do the candlelight outside the store. I remember at one point I was like, I don't feel good. And I took a perk and then I felt better. I was like, okay, I'm developing a habit now. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't like, I need this. I got deployed. It didn't even feel like cold turkey. I remember going through the sweats a couple of nights, but it didn't feel like cold turkey. When I got home after the second deployment, though, I remember the minute I touched down, I was trying to figure out where I could get them.
Why do you think that got triggered the minute you touched down?
I just, I had already had alcohol. My Steph, she used to ship it over there.
How much does that cost?
Oh no, she put it in shampoo bottles, and she would seal it. So the alcohol didn't trigger it. Sometimes when people drink, they're like, I want to do whatever drug of choice they have. When I touched down, though, I was so scared because of how bad the first time went of coming home that I didn't tell anybody I was home. I touched down at JFK and I hopped in a yellow taxi and I said, I just need to go to the nearest hotel. My mother was waiting for me. Everybody was like, when's he coming home? And I stayed at the hotel that night and I just stayed there and I tried to like decompress. And the only thing I kept thinking about was the only thing that's going to make me feel better is maybe a perk or something like that. Still at that point wasn't crazy. Went home the next day. Everybody came to see me. Everybody's, saying hi. It was like a kind of like a welcome home party type thing. Still didn't have it. And I think it was like 10 days into being home, I finally found somebody that had it and took it. And from there, I think I was kind of off to the races. I didn't want to go anywhere without it. I didn't want to meet new people, even like something like as simple as meeting you that day. Like, no, I can't. I can't meet him unless I numb myself. And the VA didn't really help with that at all because I remember when I got the prescription for the 30s, because obviously I started with 10s, no big deal. Eventually I got a prescription for the 30 milligram blue pills. those used to make me sick. I remember my cousin, he did the 30s. I always did the 10s. And he broke the 30 in quarters once. He's like, just take a quarter of it. Projectile vomit. Couldn't take it. I would throw up immensely. And then I got my script. It was 90 milligrams a day. And then a couple months later, it went up to 150 milligrams a day. And at first, I was taking them as prescribed because it was, for all the injuries that I had from the deployments. And then the VA, I remember they called me for a check-in. And they were like, well, how's the nightmares? How's the PTSD symptoms, anxiety when you're out, flashbacks, anything like that? And I was like, now that you mention it, I don't remember the last time I had a flashback. And they were like, I remember the lady on the phone said, oxycodone has been proven to alleviate PTSD symptoms. And I guess because it numbs everything, the anxiety goes out the window and all that stuff. To me, that was an okay to start abusing it. And went from 150 milligrams a day. At my worst, it was 1530s in the morning and 1530s around 7 o'clock. So 900 milligrams a day was the worst that I ever got with those. And I remember my first stint in rehab, everybody didn't believe me. They were like, no, you'd be dead. I wasn't. 15, $900 a day habit. I was working for the fire department and I was working plumbing on the side. And just, she's like, where's the money going?
She didn't know about the drug habit at all.
I think she had assumptions because she's like, I was borrowing money from her at one point. Like, oh, I need $200 or something. And then I would pay her back. But she's like, how does the amount of money that he makes, how does he need this with all the stuff that he's doing? There's the plumbing, the fire department. I remember I was doing security at one point. And it was December of 2019. She was 7 months pregnant with her daughter. And I remember I had it in my head, I was just going to end it all. I'm like, I'm not going to be a father to a kid like my father was and be an addict, because Oxy is just heroin, but it's pharmaceutical heroin. And I had a bunch of stuff, all these different prescriptions, and I was just going to end it all. And her and my sister-in-law called me. They got into a fight with my mother on the phone. And she was just like, I know you're addicted to drugs. I know there's something going on. And it felt like this huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have to hide it anymore. I gave her the bank account cards and stuff. And I remember December of 2019, she looked, I think I had $9,800 in cash withdrawals from the same bank that was right by my dealer that I used to go to. $9,800 in a month. It's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
I think it was like 2 weeks, but that was because I was getting paid cash from the plumbing. So I was just like, all right, here you go, here you go, here you go. I'd go from plumbing straight to the dealer because they were all right on the way home. At that time, my mother's place was in Rockaway. Plumbing was in Brooklyn. So on the way home from plumbing, dealers on Ocean Parkway, and then from Ocean Parkway, go to Rockaway. Have the night of my life. And that's it.
It's also got to be tough from like an onlooker's perspective, because you're not someone that was just like a bum that developed a habit, not doing anything for his life. You served our country, went to war, and then, came back. I'm sure people are in the position where they don't necessarily want to be that person to say something to you if they notice something's off.
Yeah. I think my cousin, the one that kind of introduced me to all this, I think he was the first one to tell my mother, like, he's going to die with the amount that he's taken. And my mother wanted to tell my wife, but I told her, she's pregnant. I don't want her stressed out. She's going to lose the baby. That's the addict in me saying, don't fucking leave it alone. Realistically, she probably wouldn't have lost the baby, and maybe we could have fixed this a little sooner. But it was weird for a lot of people because, like I said, I didn't drink. I didn't have my first drink until I was 21. It's not like I was like one of these kids that, 18 years old trying to get drinks and stuff. I didn't have my first drink until I was 21. I never smoked weed until I was already in my addiction. I never touched any of it. That whole never get high on your whole own supply situation. So I didn't touch anything. So I think it was shocking to a lot of people when they were like, no, not Vic, not the one that, not my nephew that joined the army, all that stuff.
Do you think if you never tried Molly, you never would have been addicted to the painkillers? Or do you think that would have been inevitable?
No, I think it would have been inevitable. I've been to rehab 4 or 5 times. Everybody that I've met in rehab is addicted to everything. If they can't get Molly, they'll get Coke. If they can't get Coke, they'll get perks. If they can't get perks, whatever. You know what I mean? I found one thing that fixed me, and that was opioids. I can have a drink and not go down the rabbit hole. I've tried other things too. It wasn't for me. The only thing that I felt like fixed me, and I say that literally, I felt like it fixed everything. The anxiety was gone. All this stuff that I had gotten from Afghanistan was gone. You come home, you feel like you don't belong. You feel like all this pressure to now do better. Like, oh, you're the soldier that came home, and you did all this stuff that our family has never done. Now you got to keep going. And in my head, I was like, no, that's the plateau. I did it. I did better than everybody already. And the opioids fixed kind of all of it.
What flashback do you think replayed the most in your mind from Afghanistan when you got back from that second tour?
14-year-old suicide bomber. Pulled up to a town in Uruzgan province in 2012. And as they were dismounting, 2 of the guys were dismounting. Kid, they always come up to you. All these kids always come up to you. We have like beef jerky or candy or something like that, and they're expecting it. No offense to them. I don't mean this as a bad or negative analogy, but kind of like stray dogs. They know you're coming. They know you're going to have something good for them, because we're trying to, at that time, hearts and minds, we're trying to please the people. And the whole crowd of kids are there, and one kid walks up. I'm in the gunner's turret. I wasn't dismounted or anything, but one kid walks up and fucking whole thing goes up. All the kids and 2 of our guys killed. That one goes through my head a lot. That one, a lot of people don't understand that a military age male over there in the Middle East is anywhere between, it could be a big 10-year-old or a small 13-year-old, but it's still kids. And then you never know too, because I had a decent relationship with our interpreter, Najib, and he said, sometimes they don't know. The Taliban comes up to them, puts the vest on them, tells them it's nothing, and says, go get something from the Americans. So they're not, sometimes those kids aren't even holding the detonator. The guy in the fucking wood line is holding the detonator. So it's war has a crazy way of making you grow up really fucking fast.
When do you think rock bottom hit you in your addiction?
Is I want to say, everybody says that every time it hits, there's another one. That's my biggest fear, that it's always going to happen again. But the worst I got, well, it's actually a 2-part to this. The worst I got was, there was a time where my wife had gotten fed up. She left. She went back to her sister. So I'm now in our apartment alone. So I got clean. I wanted my family back. My daughter was already born at that point. My oldest daughter, Celeste, she was still living with us. And I got my shit together. And one night, she said, I'm coming home. She's like, all right, I'm going to come home. And she had everything set up. She said Celeste is going to bring a friend over. They wanted to do some type of painting. So I laid out garbage bags on the floor. I was so excited that they were finally coming home. And then the anxiety kicked in. What if you're going to fuck this up again and all that? And I remember I was reporting to the FDNY. The fire department is crazy helpful with things like this because they know what we see every day. And they know a lot of firefighters are veterans too, so they already have their own issues that they come on board with. And I went in that day and I told them that I don't know what's going on. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I remember I was in tears and I was like, I think I want to kill myself. And they spoke with me that whole day, which you're usually supposed to do, like, you know, they have the yoga and then the group meeting. That whole day, they just spoke with me. And they called this therapist that I was, at that time, it was Zoom. And they were like, all right, he's going to go home and he's going to call you and then you're going to check in with us. But they never called Steph, which to this day, she holds over their head. They never called her and let her know that I was suicidal that day. On my way home, I stopped and I picked up. And when I got home, I still fought it. I spoke to the therapist. I was telling her, I gave her the bullshit spiel, like, oh, no, yeah, everything's fine now. I was just feeling a little, you know, a certain type of way. And after she got off the phone, I went and I did my thing, you know, crushed it up. One of them that I picked up had fentanyl in it. And I felt it almost within 10 or 15 minutes that something was wrong. So then I go to the bathroom and I look in the mirror and Steph wasn't supposed to be at the house until about 9. This was at, I want to say 6 o'clock. And I could tell in the mirror. And, you know, an addict is like, no, I'm not high. You could fight it. I looked in the mirror and I was like, I could fucking tell I'm high. And she's going to come home and that's it. I'm going to lose everything all over again. So I took the rest of them. I was like, well, you had this plan this morning. Might as well see it through. Took the rest of them, crushed them up right on the bathroom, snorted it, and was looking at pictures of my family, and I sat down on the edge of my bed, and that's the last thing I remember. She came home kind of like laughing because she could hear me snoring. She's like, oh, he must be exhausted. Everything was set up. The garbage bags on the floor for the girls to paint, all that. And she was like, all right, I'm going to let him sleep. And I guess at one point the snoring stopped. And then she was on FaceTime with her sister and she was like, I don't know if there's something wrong. She lifted my lip. My gums were black. My fingernails were purple. I was gone. And she called 911. They came in. I remember talking to the paramedics after. They hit me with Narcan twice up the nose. Didn't work. Wasn't coming back. So then they gave me the intravenous one. And all of a sudden I jumped up out of nowhere. I'm looking around and I'm like, what's going on? And, you know, the paramedic's like, what's up, bud? You OD'd. Remember, that's the first thing he said to me. And I'm like, that is not what I want to hear right now. Yeah. And I remember looking at my wife and I'll never get that look off her face. Like I see it to this day, the disappointment. Like this is the day she was supposed to come back. This is the day you're supposed to fix everything. And you fucked it up. And I went to the hospital and at first I was lying and I was like, oh, I don't know what happened, this and that. And then finally I just told the doctor the truth. I was like, I tried to kill myself. And I remember at the hospital, I guess they didn't search me. So I still had more. I had a little Ziploc bag in my pocket. And, you know, the mindset of an addict. I went straight for it. And I guess because I was still hooked up to everything, the nurses knew something was wrong. My heart levels and everything dropped. And she searched my stuff and she found it. And, you know, she told Steph. And I went from there to a psych ward. And from the psych ward, Stephanie had found a place up in Lake Placid, the Adirondacks, St. Joseph's Rehabilitation Center for veterans only, just for vets, nobody else. Because she understood what everybody else didn't. You don't need to fix the addiction. He wasn't an addict, you need to fix the PTSD. And that's what basically that they fixed. I was there for 4 months. Not before my other felony, but that was the other thing that happened. So that was part two. I'm sorry, that was part two. I had gone up there, and on the second week, the job called me. The fire department said, "We need you to come back for a week." They had to redo something. I had to sign paperwork. They had to reissue me medical leave. Again, the fire department was super helpful. They took care of me. They took care of my family that whole time. On that week that I was home, I got high again. I got lucky again with a fentanyl pill. And I was on 95 North driving. I honestly don't remember. I remember on the way, I was like, all right, I'm only 45 minutes away from home, quick. And I woke up to a police officer giving me chest compressions in a shopping center, kind of like what you have outside. And he was like, "You all right, bud? You all right?" And, I have my military stuff in my windshield and stuff, so I guess he was being very nice to me, even though he could tell that there was something wrong. He had given me Narcan, again, twice, and then started chest compressions because he said he couldn't feel a heartbeat. Because I remember my chest was killing me. I thought he broke my ribs. And they said that I was on 95 North. I OD'd behind the wheel, and I was going northbound on 95 South. And that they had 8 or 9 911 calls about somebody driving the wrong way on the highway. I ended up, must have been some type of light on in there. I don't remember any of this, but something must have been on, because they said that I went down an on-ramp on 95 South while going north, and I hit some lady's car. And then from there, just bounced off the car into the shopping center, all of a sudden came to a stop. They think that my foot came off the gas and went onto the brake or something, and that I was in the car. Because even when the cop was giving me chest compressions, my foot was on the brake. I wasn't in park yet. And they sent me to the hospital, towed my Jeep, sent me to the hospital, and 2 narcotics officers met me there. Because they were like, "You can't leave. You committed a crime or whatever." I didn't know. And I told them, I was like, "I don't know what happened." And they're like, "We do. We have your blood work. We know what you had in your system." Cops came. Again, 2 of the nicest cops I could have ever met. One of them was a previous addict. He was in recovery. And the other one was just, decent guy. He's like, "We know you're a veteran. We don't know what's going on, but we know that you OD'd. And this is what's going to go. This is what's going to happen from this point on." And I told them that I'm supposed to be going back to rehab. They wrote that in the report because he said, he was like, "We're either going to take you tomorrow. You're going to turn yourself in tomorrow, or if you go to rehab, we can write that in the report." I said, "I'm going tomorrow to rehab, back up to St. Joe's." That all worked out. I went back up to St. Joe's. I stayed there for about 5 months. And I think it was day 1 back home. The courts, everybody already knew that I was getting released that day, straight to the police station. And again, 2 of the nicest cops, they were like, "All right, do you want us to wait for your wife to leave? We have to handcuff you. Unfortunately, we don't have a choice." I was like, "I appreciate it." I gave her a kiss goodbye. They handcuffed me, took me in the back, fingerprints, picture, all of that. And then from there, it was just basically waiting for a court date.
You're lucky to be alive after that.
She doesn't get enough of that. She's like, "I don't know who the fuck's looking out for you, but who goes the wrong way on a highway and doesn't die?" And I still, to this day, I'm like,
Or does it kill anyone else?
That was the biggest thing that I was thinking about. I'm like, how did I not kill that lady that I hit? And I remember the first thing I asked, I'm like, "Is the lady okay?" And they were like, "Yeah, the lady's wondering if you're okay." And I was like, in my head, that's amazing to me. Some random lady has no idea who I am. Just like, is that guy all right? You know, I fucked her car up. I fucked my car up, but I couldn't believe it. And they told me. I remember I talked to the narcotics detectives at the hospital, and they were like, yeah, dude, we have 911 calls that you were going the wrong way on 95. It's a 3-lane highway. So I had to go through the grass, that fucking shit, onto the wrong side of the highway. And I didn't hit anybody, like head on or none of that. But I have no memory of any of it.
What happened to the charges?
So I went to court, paid, I think $5,000 or $6,000 for a lawyer. Thank God for that. She was a bull. Paid the money, went to court. I remember my mentor growing up, this wise guy from Brooklyn. He told me, no matter what you're going to court for, if it's a parking ticket or anything, always show up in a suit. So I put my nicest suit on. I went to court, and she told me straight up, she's like, the judge is kind of a hard ass, so I don't know what's going to happen here, but we're looking at best case scenario, a year of probation where you can't do anything wrong, you can't get in trouble. And then she starts talking, and she's like, you know, he's a decorated military veteran. He has this, you know, X amount of medals. He's got this, he's got that. He made a mistake. He went to rehab for 5 months. He's doing better now. And I remember the guy looked at me, and I was like, this is not going to be good. Like an old white guy looking at me like he was judging me. And I couldn't have been more wrong. He just basically told me, he's like, the stuff you're messing with kills people. And he said the same thing you just said. He said, the fact that you're not dead, the fact that you didn't kill anybody else that night is a miracle. So he gave me the 1 year of probation, and he said the felony is going to stay on your record for 18 months pending if you behave for the next, you know, X amount of months, whatever it was. I think it was 12 to 18 months. I fucking didn't touch anything, didn't do anything, everything was good. And eventually she gave me a call. I think it was like 20 months after the case. And she was like, the felonies, I don't know if she said it was in a sealed record or if it was gone. But she said, you don't have to worry about it anymore, basically. So thankfully, I got to give Steph the credit for most of this, because I was just going to go to court. She's like, no, you got to get a lawyer. You got to do this, you got to do that. So
Do you think if you didn't have someone by your side, you wouldn't have been able?
I think I'd be dead already. I'm surprised I'm this old. I remember growing up, I thought I was either going to be in jail or dead before I was 30. And I've made it this far. You know, I wasn't a terrible kid, but I wasn't a good kid. I wasn't a terrible young adult, but I wasn't a good one either. You know, I made a lot of bad choices. I hung out with the wrong people. The only guy to this day that I still keep in contact with and that I still consider family from me making those bad choices is the wise guy that told me, you know, always wear a suit no matter if it's a traffic ticket or not. You know, he was an awesome mentor to me growing up. And even after everything happened, you know, I remember I texted him and I was talking to him, and he was like, I never wanted this life for you. You're a good kid. You were just an angry kid, and we used it. That was it. That was the extent of my use for certain people, even my family. They're like, all right, call Vic. I remember driving from Bay Ridge on 86th Street and 4th Avenue to Park Slope because somebody put their hands on my cousin. And I'm standing on the corner of 12th Street and 7th Avenue with a 45 in my hand, screaming, waiting for this guy to come out of this bodega that everybody had him locked in. Like, and still to this day, I'm like, how the hell did I not get arrested for that? No, at that time, maybe there weren't as many cameras as we do, you know, as we have now. But I don't know. It's I've lived a weird life.
What's your life look like now?
A lot of work, but I'm happy finally. I was I've been trying to run away to the military for so long. And every time that something wasn't going good, I would sign up for another deployment. And then 2019 came around and I was going to sign up for another one. And because of everything, head to toe, I got a TBI, I got all these different injuries. They stamped my paperwork non-deployable. So then I got shipped back home. And we just kind of, we moved forward from there. And she, kind of like a cartoon, she grabbed me by the back of my neck and just put me in the right direction. So she was like, all right, you're home. And I'm pregnant, so you gonna do something, And that kind of pushed me in the right direction. That started the push. I still went through addiction at that time, but that started the push. And once I came home that last time, I knew this was it. If I fuck up again, I'm gonna lose my wife, I'm gonna lose my kids. So now what life looks like is I work my ass off at the firehouse. I work my ass off, whatever side job I can pick up. But every time I come home, I got 3 people happy to see me. My daughter jumps in my arms. My wife tries to scare me, or both of them try to scare me when I come home. I never thought I'd own a home, but I have a 2-story house, 3 dogs. I'm happy when I'm home. I'm on leave right now. I've been home for a couple of weeks, enjoyed every second of it. I think for the first time in my life since the military, I'm happy. But, the other day, I forget what she said. Oh no, we were at church. That was another thing. We just started church. I never thought I'd go back to church. But we were at church and they were like, close your eyes and picture a place. It's got to be your happy place. And she nudges me and she's like, what'd you picture? I was like, you don't want to know. She's like, it was Afghanistan, wasn't it? I was like, yeah. Because honestly, I feel like that was my purpose. I feel like I was born to be a soldier. I feel like that was what I was made to do. And I loved it. Afghanistan was my Super Bowl. If I'm Eli Manning, that's what Afghanistan was to me. Every year that he won the Super Bowl, those 2 deployments were my Super Bowls. I did great. I served my country. I did as best as I could, and I think I did a good job. And I think my leadership thinks I did a good job, with the exception of that one time. But I do miss it, but I love what I have now too.
What advice would you give to someone that's struggling with addiction right now?
I guess that it's never over. I know every time somebody thinks it's over, I think I just watched something with Tommy Lee recently. He said every time he hit a year, Tommy Lee from Motley Crue.
Yeah, I used to edit his wife's podcast.
Yeah?
Like the clips. And I did their episode, like when he went on theirs. So I did the clips for him.
I love Motley Crue. But I watched an interview that he did, and it was he said every time he hit a year, he just was so happy that he hit that year that he would go and party. And then he'd start the year all over again. And that's the only advice that I would give, is that it's never